Hello everyone, it's Gary. I'm starting today's little clip with the sad announcement that I will not be using the 747 anymore as I cannot get it to perform well. When I say that, I would like to play the game as close to ultra settings as I can because the whole point in playing this game is for the beautiful scenery, in my opinion. Anyways, so unfortunately that plane's out. I kind of have a split screen of taking off from the same airport with the A320 and the 747. Please note that I get significantly more frames when I'm not recording from the game to put into a video for everyone. So I get anywhere from 23, 24 up to 30 frames, which is good enough for me. But the 747 is just below that 20 mark that makes it kind of frustrating to use. So anyways, I won't be using it. Laptop is not good enough right now to operate that aircraft. You'll notice the spoiler's up a little bit because the joystick was not overly calibrated when I took off. Anyways, so the pet peeve or problem that I have in this video today is the photogrammetry. If you take a look, the trees and the houses, they're just not balanced. It looks like there's too many trees or they're overgrown, and the houses in the streets they're just completely taken out by these trees. But to make it worse, there was a bunch of random little objects that really don't resemble anything. So I turned off the photogrammetry as seen here, and you lose that overgrown vegetation and get very clean looking streets with houses and trees balanced. But you now lose the photorealistic cities that make Flight Simulator 2020 one of the much better flight simulators that have come out as of late. So I'm going to have some comparisons for you to decide which one you prefer. But I think the photogrammetry is good if you're in a big downtown city center. But anywhere outside of that in the city, it's not going to work. Okay, so as we climb out of Detroit Metro with a much more frame rate friendly aircraft, I want you to notice the weird shapes, the trees spotted, and kind of overgrown vegetation that seems to take away the architecture of the city. So to turn off photogrammetry, I'm sure most of you know how, but in case you didn't, you go to General Settings and click on Data and just turn it off. It actually takes a good amount of time to switch over, maybe a good 20 to 30 seconds. But as you turn the photogrammetry off, you'll notice much clearer images. So I don't normally fly in the downtown city cores or downtown cores, but that's where you would want to have the photogrammetry on. But when you're in the outskirts of the city, having photogrammetry on may not be the best option because I find it to be a lot less clean as well as strange overgrown vegetation. As for the frame rates, it's actually interesting that when I turned off photogrammetry in the same area, I actually had kind of a slight decrease in frame rates, but I'm assuming that's because of the more clean, it seems like there's more data to not use the photogrammetry, and it just looks a lot cleaner though overall, which is what I prefer. As you can see, the 747 is not too bad for frame rates outside of the aircraft, but once you get into it, for me at least, it's very, very low, which is unfortunate. It's a very beautiful aircraft in the game, but like I've said before, general aviation is kind of where it's at. So I decided to do some comparisons with Google Earth. Here we have photogrammetry on. And if you look between Google Earth and Flight Simulator 2020, you will notice a significant amount of what I consider to be over vegetation. It's kind of taking over what you would want to see in a city like Detroit, more industrial. Again, I could be wrong, but a lot of people like to compare things to Google Earth, and it's like Google Earth is great. They have better looking, everything. So here you can see that, yes, Flight Simulator 2020 seems to be over-vegetated in Detroit and maybe other areas. So when we turn the photogrammetry off, I actually find that it more closely resembles the way Google Earth is making Detroit 3D. And the only difference I notice is the colors are a little bit different, obviously, because it's two different companies. But yeah, if you look, the houses, the vegetation seem to match more when you take the photogrammetry off. So for me, I've started to do that in cities until I get close to the city center. Then I might switch it on. But yeah, it's obviously a personal preference. So in the next clip here, or the next couple of clips, I do want to show you the difference now when you get to the downtown core. As you can see, without photogrammetry on, you're missing buildings, and some buildings are not properly represented. The GM building, for instance, is not even there. So turning back on photogrammetry is a good idea when you get to the downtown cores. You can still see some of the weird shapes, and the houses are not formed properly, and there seems to be a little bit more vegetation. However, the buildings probably will take your eyes away from all that stuff as you're flying around them. It's one of the things I assume people like to see when they go downtown. But again, the frame rates don't seem to be much different between the two. And, the weird things I was complaining about aren't as noticeable in the downtown area. So I'll leave that up to you guys to decide, as you would anyways, but just wanted to point out the difference between the photogrammetry and not. I do want to mention, with regards to the buildings, I don't know. Again, I find them to be the photogrammetry buildings, which is great because they're accurate. I just find them to not look that great. If you've taken off from Toronto City Center, it's just, I don't know. If you've seen it, you know what I mean. If not, go take a look. And if it's just my luck that the buildings kind of are shaped kind of weird, they look kind of blurry in areas compared to the generic buildings. If I'm nuts for that, then just, definitely let me know in the comments and maybe tell me what I'm doing wrong. But if you're seeing it too, then it's something that I hope will get a little bit crisper in the future, but I don't necessarily know how, because even when you look at Google Earth images, they're not, crystal clear either. Again, I don't fly next to the buildings all day. I rarely fly to the city airports, but again, I'm just pointing it out as I'm doing a video on the photogrammetry. And don't get me wrong, there is in no doubt in anybody's mind that the game is very fantastic. And again, these are things that you really notice when you pause a plane and look at it in midair. But I really do want to mention one last important item with the photogrammetry. Buildings, but also bridges. I thought I had seen in the distance a real bridge that crosses into Detroit, the Ambassador Bridge, I believe. And if you take photogrammetry off, that bridge turns into a flat bridge that goes over the road. So if you had looked closely when it switched over, you can clearly see quite a difference between the photogrammetry in the big city versus not. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to point this out. I'm not going to do a side-by-side of every city or anything, but for some of you, if you're like me, looking off in the distance and thinking to yourself, this kind of looks junky, then maybe turn off the photogrammetry if you haven't already tried this and see what it's like. I also think the vegetation, which is clear in these images, the vegetation just looks like it takes up too much. In some areas you would see that, but I feel like it doesn't really look like the Detroit that I think of when I think of more industrial, city areas. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this clip. I don't know if I taught you very much, but I hope I pointed out some things that you could check out on your own and make some decisions on that. And I did want to mention as well, for anybody that's been following, the fact that this is a lower end laptop. that the 747 still isn't really at a liking for me. The A320 Neo is good most of the time. There's been some slowdowns, which I don't really understand. But I also want to mention, because I don't think I've been able to explain this if you haven't noticed, I'm not playing the game in 4K either. So before anybody goes and wants to play it on 4K and says to me that the frames are ridiculous, yeah, I'm playing it on just 1080p right now until I upgrade to a better TV one day. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and overall I'm very happy with the update that did come out a few days ago. And again, wonderful simulator, and I definitely would recommend this laptop for somebody who, you know, can't pay $3 or $4 grand for a powerhouse, but wants a, you know, small laptop you can move from place to place and get away with the game on more basic resolutions. It's definitely fun. And yes, so have yourselves a great day, and I'll talk to you next time.